Yes.
Hi, I'm Kristen Gutierrez, and I'm here talking about Be a Better Sales Leader. And joined by my guest, Mike Mulligan. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Kristen. How are you?
I am good. We've known each other a long time, but why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners?
We sure have. I will. Mike Mulligan. I am currently the head of global account management at Global Lingo. I suppose I would consider myself an industry veteran. Been around for about 24 years at this point. I initially started off as a localization engineer, and more recently was the head of sales and marketing at United Language Group. But now I'm at Global Lingo, heading up their global account management team and working with them in order to support the next phase of our growth. So nice to meet you.
Yes, thanks for being here. And you've kind of given a little bit of your background, but tell me about your leadership experience. How long have you been leading, and what are some of the different types of roles you've had?
Yeah, so my first leadership experience goes back to approximately 2009. So at Merrill Brink, we were starting to develop the organization, starting to mature the operation there. So I was asked to take on a business unit role, leading a small team, I suppose a small multidiscipline team. And it was my first leadership experience, which, is daunting at times for certain people. But it was interesting because it was a multidisciplinary team. Again, it had different challenges. I was used to the whole project management side of things, so that's what I was doing previous to that. But then it was, I suppose, a good experience, my first experience and my first learning experience in leadership. Working with engineers, with project management, with quality in order to ultimately deliver for the customer. But yeah, I was certainly raw back then.
Right. So let's like go on that, right? Because the whole concept is how do you become a better sales leader? And you've said some things now that's like when you were raw and that it was daunting. So how did you learn to get over the daunt of the task? Like how did you learn to like be more seasoned versus raw?
I think the learning just came with experience, Kristen, because I suppose when you step up from being a senior project manager into a business unit role and you're dealing with different people and also different customers, right? You ultimately learn on the job. There was a certain amount of formal training that we went through during that period, but I think you learn through experience for early on anyway. And then as you kind of mature as a leader, you start to look at different courses or following different people or reading different books and kind of, but ultimately I think you learn on the job. And I think one of the interesting things for me over my career is that I'm 24 years in the industry, but I've had 17 managers, which in preparation for this call, I kind of just counted them out, which is always interesting, right? Because you're going to learn something from each and every one of them. You're going to
Mhm.
take the good pieces and take it into the next role that you do. So I think that's been an interesting learning experience for me. And also I've been with, I suppose, a couple of different companies. So I was at Merrill Brink or iteration of Merrill Brink for a long time, but also learned at different companies I went to, like Vistatech and Moravia, and then as well as back to United Language Group, where through the various experiences and customers and people and managers, you learn, right?
Mhm.
Ultimately.
Yeah, these are some of the core topics, right? It's get out of your own way, right? Is one of the pillars that I've identified as how to become a better sales leader and ask for help and fail forward. And then at the same time, you're talking about personal growth. Is there anything in particular? Are there articles or blogs or books that you've read along the way that have really served you in learning, or is it just kind of like always be learning?
I think it's always be learning. So like or even earlier on in my career when I was a localization engineer or a project manager, I always tended to follow like industry in terms of industry leaders or industry bodies or industry, anything from a localization perspective. I just tended to kind of read up on and kind of, I just felt it gave me a better insight in terms of like what I could do for the company and how I could drive my customers forward, how could I drive the team forward. I suppose over time, then I've kind of looked into different areas in terms of large account management, the LAMP program, just to hone my skills in that area. And then more recently, I've just started to listen to different sales podcasts. Mike Weinberg is one recently I find interesting, and just really kind of learn bits and pieces. Now, obviously, with there's so much content online. LinkedIn is obviously a huge platform that you're heavily involved in yourself, that you can learn so much from that on a daily basis. And I think just continuously learning from that point of view really helps you grow as a leader as well.
I agree. Good insight. Thank you. So to wrap up, then, what is some advice you would give your younger leader self?
Listen and continuously learn. I
Okay.
think as a leader, continuous improvement is critical. So for me, listening not just to your direct reports, to everybody in the business that you're in, everybody's got a good insights. One of the things I always felt was very important to be a good leader was to not just understand your team that you're working in, and don't work in a silo, understand all parts of the business, because it gives you an advantage in terms of making decisions or deciding to go one way or the other, or making a call in certain situations. So for me, it's listen, learn. I think good leaders listen to their team, don't just take their own advice. They listen, and then they coach up their team and allow them to excel, to deliver for the business. So I think listening and continuous learning is critical, and something, I suppose, not that nobody told me that, but maybe if I was to go back to 2009, I'd love to have heard that from the start.
Great advice, Mike. Thank you so much for sharing. If anyone wants to get in touch with you following, watching this broadcast, what's the best place?
Just
LinkedIn?
contact me at LinkedIn, please. Yeah, appreciate that.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks, Kristen. Take care. Bye bye.